Oh, good. Michelle and Keely, I like to make sure that we get the webinar up live for people who are, like everyone right now, moving when their computer dings at them. We'll let people log in and have a moment with us behind the scenes here, like the pre-game, the pre-show. It's great. As you're logging in, friends, if you want to introduce yourselves in the chat, then we'll know that you're hearing us and seeing us okay. Glad you're here. It's an important topic. Come on in. And if we were in person, I'd invite everybody to get a seat down front. Hi, Scott from Deep South Texas, and Diane from Southern California. Whoa, the scrolling of it's
We
here
got
from
New
Chicago.
Zealand in there, Wendy.
What did I miss?
I saw New Zealand in there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Welcome. Oh, gosh. Michelle and Keely, you've brought people from across the country and around the globe. I'm excited to share the discussion with everyone. That's great. Well, it is teachery time, so I'll move us right into our discussion and welcome everybody. As people are logging in, of course, the first thing that I always do, if you've been in a webinar with me before, you know I like to take care of the housekeeping. And housekeeping question number one is always, will this be recorded and can I have the slides? And yes, we are educators working with and for educators. So of course the recording will be available. Happy to share slides with you. And my team has done a great job recently of capturing the chat. So we'll also make the chat log available to you, which means you're going to get all of the enrichment from your colleagues across the country and around the globe. That tells me I want to make sure we encourage the use of the chat. And so let's do that by having an opening chat here. If you've already introduced yourself and if you've shared where you are, that's fine. You can do it again. But I'd also love to ask everybody to move into the topic with me and offer whatever is on your mind related to SEL. So take a moment now, open your chat if you haven't. And while you're doing that, take note, when you are typing down at the bottom, you can send to all panelists, but actually you want to send to all panelists and attendees, because if you send to just the panelists, then the rest of you joining will not be able to see the comments. So use the drop down, send to all panelists and attendees, and that will make our conversation particularly rich in the chat today. So we'll save the recording, we'll have slides, and we'll have the chat log. So do enjoy making recommendations and sharing observations and examples in the chat log today. So I'm looking forward to whatever is on your mind related to SEL. While you all are finishing that warm up chat, I will say welcome officially. You are here for SEL as a way of being. And I can't think of a more important topic in education right now. It is really our well-being. I will welcome everybody. You're not here to speak to me, so let me introduce the featured guests today. I am joined by Michelle Trujillo, author, consultant, and former principal. Thank you for that real world experience, Michelle. Glad you're here. I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more through the course of our discussion. I'm also joined by Keely Keller, Director of Professional Learning at Learner's Edge. Keely has worked with Michelle's book called Start with the Heart and has created a 3-credit continuing education course. And so our conversation today is about that content and how to really consider it as a practitioner. So I welcome both of you with heartfelt excitement about being here. Michelle, can I ask you to start first and share why this topic has become so important to you to the point of publishing a book about it?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking, Wendy. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I just love seeing the attendees, everybody from everywhere. This topic is crucial today. It's always been important to me. And looking at it through the lens of a way of being, I think is more important than anything, because so many of us, we know being in the classroom, whether it be, when we say educator, we're talking about teachers, administrators, counselors, social workers, librarians, bus drivers, anybody striving to meet the needs of students and families within the school community. We really not only need to be aware of our students' social and emotional well-being, but of ours. It's got to start with us. And we know if we've been in the trenches, we don't need more to do. People are overwhelmed, especially right now. So when we look at how we be, and I know my grammar's off there, how do we be a bunch of educators, but it's about our state of being. How do we be in the way that we interact with the world around us and with the humans around us? That's where social emotional learning starts.
I can hear already of your personal commitment to the discussion and to the topic. Keely, you were inspired by Michelle's book. Can you talk a little bit about how you take something as precious as her book and create a course around it?
Very carefully. Well, I should say too, immediately when I broke open Michelle's book, I connected. I was a former program coordinator at a setting 4 and day treatment program for students who couldn't stay or be educated in their mainstream school. And that for me, it was just so obvious that students needed that base of social emotional learning, social skills to even start to understand the academic components that we're trying to teach them, right? And so at that point, I just really connected with Michelle, and then everything in the book is just so applicable. It made writing the course very easy. And I've always had an interest in teacher burnout or educator wellness. And for me, the idea of adult SEL just paired up so nicely with the interest that I've had in the past around making sure that teachers are focused on their well-being and that everybody around them is also focused on their well-being, because both students and teachers need to have those basic needs met before they can do their job. And for the student, that's learning academically, and for the teacher, that's teaching. But as you know, your bucket has to be full before you can fill the bucket of others. And so that's why I was really wanting to use Michelle's text in a course.
I'm going to pause the screen sharing for just a moment so that we can enjoy a conversation between the three of us. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you all connected originally and what that conversation was like. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so we typically try to reach out to the authors of the course text, and so I reached out to Michelle, and she immediately got back to me, and then I think we just kind of became fast friends.
Yes.
She was so excited to hear about the fact that we were using the course text, and like I said, we had very similar backgrounds as it was professionally, and then just our ideas lined up quite well. One of the things that Michelle talks about in the book is the word love and love in school, and how a lot of people feel like school is not the place for love. But for me, seeing some of the challenges that the students that I had worked with had gone through, in my mind, school sometimes is the safest place a student can be in their day. And it may be the only place where they're experiencing love. And so, that was Michelle and I just connected very easily over that idea, and the idea of just the base of social emotional learning being so important.
Michelle, what can you add to that?
Well, I just have to say, when Keely reached out to me, she said I got right back to her. And I did, because I was thrilled. And I was thrilled because I really, this book was born in my school, the school of which I was a principal. And it was an alternative education high school. And we built it on the foundation of family and of love and of second chances. And all of that is born in social emotional learning, or social emotional learning is born in those concepts. And so when Keely reached out to me, I want to share, when something works, and whether the name is social emotional learning, whether we look at it as social emotional well-being, it is a timeless, necessary way of being, regardless of what it's called. And I knew as a principal and as a teacher that it is something that touched kids in the way that caused them to want to be in school, to believe in themselves, to want to achieve. So when she reached out and I realized that this is a way to share this idea of social emotional learning with even more educators, I was thrilled and feel humbled and blessed to be part of the project, for certain.
Michelle, can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Oh, absolutely. I've spent over 25 years as a teacher and then as a principal. Most of my career I spent in the realm of alternative education. So have always been drawn to finding opportunities for students to be able to find success, and whatever that success looks like for them personally and academically. And alternative education was a way to do that. We have to think outside the box, do things a little bit differently, still with high expectations and high rigor. And that's how I lived as an educator in the classroom and in school. And it's how I live today as an author. And I do a great deal of professional learning facilitation and a lot of speaking. You know, I really believe that if we can tune into the heart of our kids and of our colleagues and ourselves, I mean, we cannot neglect ourselves, then we're going to be on the right path with helping kids to achieve academically. I mean, we know our schools are measured by, you know, academics. We want our kids to be successful academically, but we've got to meet them here first.
I'm grateful to hear that your focus on this topic has existed for a long time, because I've been concerned that people are just newly aware of SEL considerations as we come out of really disrupted learning years too. And so there's some relief I'm feeling hearing about your long-standing commitment. In your work, you have identified the 7 keys to connection, and I wonder if we can transition and have a discussion about some of the specifics that you have there. Is that? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as you say that, Wendy, I'm thinking, as educators are listening to this, oftentimes you hear the term SEL.
Mm-hmm.
And I think educators think curriculum, or they think, you know, well, I have these lesson plans I was given that I'm supposed to do with my kids. And so as you jump into these keys to connection, I think it's important that we think of SEL as not only as a way of being, but let's just dip our toe into how do we practice and model social emotional learning. And what is social emotional learning? And really what it comes down to is emotional and social connection. And that's where these keys are born. So can I tell you?
I just threw a question in the chat inviting people to consider, do you teach SEL or do you live SEL? So we'll put that in the chat while you talk us through the 7 keys. And then Keely, I would love to hear how and if these are incorporated in the course.
Yeah, these right away I grabbed onto this. And the reason that I did that is because I'm always looking for things that are just uber applicable to the practitioner. And these are things that anybody in any role in a school can do. And so that's why I made it, it's actually the first assignment in the course, is to really think about the 7 keys to connection and dig a little bit deeper into them, and then authentically figure out how are you going to do this in your role. And so, you know, it was really easy to identify it as something, a nugget that I wanted to take out of the book, and then have course participants actually work through and look at and figure out how am I going to implement these things. And what's beautiful about these 7 keys is the fact that they're very simple. But the tricky thing is, if you're looking at them, I mean, oftentimes when we ask somebody how they're doing, we're walking directly past them. How are you? You're already past. So, you know, for me, it was all about intentionality and really getting to, okay, stop. I actually have to physically stop my body to have this conversation. And I want to, and you have to start to be really intentional about how you're connecting. And then square up, square your shoulders up, actually look at the person, you know. So I'll let Michelle talk through that. But for me, it was a good reminder that there has to be intentionality behind these things. And it's okay to stop and have a genuine connection moment, whether it be with a student or a colleague or someone else in your building. We have to give ourselves permission to have those moments.
Yeah. Michelle, tell us.
I will. And let me just say, just as Keely drew attention to, the first 4 keys to connection, they go together. And as Keely said, it's okay to stop. It is also very true that there are times that people don't have time to stop. You're walking from point A to point B. If you don't have time, then don't ask the question. How are you is a great example. So if you just have to get to your classroom and you have to get there fast, then continue walking and say, hi, great to see you. Hope you have a great day. but don't ask the how are you question. If you're going to ask the how are you question, it is so important to stop, look a person in the eye, ask the question, how are you, or anything else, and then listen for the answer. Because if we don't take time to stop and listen, then what we're demonstrating is that we don't care. Even if we do, we know we're caring professionals and caring people. That's why we've chosen this vocation. But to actually be intentional and thoughtful about taking time to stop, look, ask, and listen. And when you ask, how are you, and you listen to the answer, ultimately that student, the next day when you say, hey, how's your dad doing? You know, yesterday you were having a rough day because he was having a rough day. And that kid's going to say, oh my gosh, she remembered or he remembered. And then you're going to begin to build relationships, which, as we know, is a social emotional learning skill. So these are just little ways of being within our everyday lives that we either are intentional about or we aren't. So stop, look, ask, and listen. Let's talk about smiling authentically, though, because this one and the next one are key in this time of, I want to call it post-COVID, but we are really in the midst of it still. And challenges of the pandemic are going to continue, I think, to stay with us. And so the importance of smiling authentically is two-part now. I used to say, we need to smile and smile from our heart so that it comes through our actual smile and through our eyes. Today, we have to remember that oftentimes our mouth is covered. So we have to not only smile with joy from our hearts when we address someone or greet someone, but use their names and then be able to say, you may not be able to tell because I'm wearing this mask, but my heart and my mouth is smiling so big right now because I'm so grateful that you're here or you're with me. So that intentionality, back to, we've got to sometimes articulate what we're doing if they can't actually see us. And keep in mind, do you know, when we smile, I mean, just look at you, Wendy, I'm looking at your face. It helps me as I see you smiling. I have a release of dopamine and serotonin that makes me feel better. That's why smiling is contagious.
There was a nice comment in here from Charlotte who said, people tell me that I smile with my eyes. So Charlotte is winning the mask situation. Yes. We have to push a little bit. I don't know if you can get away with a serious face and eye squint like fake one. I think people are going to be able to sort those out, from under the mask. But it is true. A smile is something that's hard not to return, and smiling changes what's happening inside of us. If we could start our day, even the alarm goes off, instead of growling first, maybe we could make ourselves smile for a moment.
Yeah, we all look in the mirror, or most of the time, right? We look in the mirror when we get up in the morning. Why not help ourselves to that? Yes, that joy.
Maybe just a post-it on the mirror that says smile. I mean, that's the thing. Some of these ideas are so simple and so easy, but yet it does, again, take that intentionality to actually do the thing or remind yourself.
Mm-hmm. Until it becomes a habit, why not prompt ourselves?
Yes. Can you want me to go on, Wendy? Because I get excited.
Tell us a little bit more. We've looked at 5 now. We've spent a moment here on smiling, connecting kinesthetically. Let's go here.
Yes, especially right now. So I have always been a big proponent of connecting kinesthetically. And what I mean by that, shaking hands, high fives, fist bumps, something that also releases not only dopamine and serotonin, but oxytocin, and helps us to feel more focused, help us to concentrate better, and helps kids to feel recognized, seen, and heard, right? And today, maybe not responsible and not safe to actually shake hands. And so we need to be careful about this. Kinesthetic connection, when it's appropriate, is important, and there's brain science connected to it. But there are ways that we can connect emotionally and socially without actually touching. I mean, if we use kinesthetic connection as a handshake, just think about a metaphorical handshake. So when we reach out to shake someone's hands, our hands are open, right? So if we think of that idea of opening our hands, our hearts, our minds to one another by using someone's name when it's appropriate, because it's not always, looking them in the eye, being able to get on eye level with someone, especially if you're working with younger kids, to get down on a knee, even though you have that physical distance, just to say, I'm here. I want to be connected with you, even connecting with something that they are connected to. So if a kid is at a desk, to be able to just place your hand on the desk and look them in the eye and say, Johnny, so glad to see you today. You know, I missed you yesterday, and I'm glad you're in my classroom today. It just says connection is important.
Michelle, the chat is asking what to do in a virtual environment. We certainly have a number of educational environments that will continue to be hybrid or virtual for a while. And an answer also came in the chat suggesting an air hug. So if it can't be this, you know, maybe here, grab a hug from me. Keely, nice, the air high five. I'm a big one for making the heart on the screen when I to share some love. I've heard of other people offering some shine. So I think we have to make the effort even in a virtual space. Michelle, is there anything else you would offer in that particular context of virtual?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it goes back to the importance of emotional and social connection. One of the very first things we can start doing is stop using the term social distancing. We want to socially connect. So let's be intentional about saying, although we have to be physically distant, or although we're living in this virtual classroom, this is still our class family. We still want to get to know each other. You can ask very low risk questions about, you know, favorite, I don't know, favorite pastime, something you enjoy doing after school, just a little bit of sharing as a check-in with each other. Using students' names is a way to emotionally connect. It doesn't matter if you're virtual or not, but encouraging kids to just participate and engage, giving them opportunities, be it through some limited choices, you know, do you like this or do you like this? But also being cognizant of your demographics and your students and what are they bringing with them into the classroom. We need to be able to seek to understand what our kids are living in this moment. There are so many students up against all odds. And when we show that we care and we maybe even articulate, I might not understand what you all are going through, but I want you to know I'm here. That is a way to emotionally connect. We can't pretend. Kids see right through that, right? But to be able to say, I'm with you. I want to understand. So tell me more.
Those moments are not a waste of time. It's an investment of time. Carolyn in the chat was saying that she likes to start class with roses and thorns. And those are things that people want to celebrate or things that might have been a little ouchy, and gives people a chance to share what's going on in their individual lives. So
yeah, I love that. Was it Carolyn you said, Wendy?
Yes, roses.
I love that activity. And I also like taking it a step further to say, what might it take to turn that thorn into a rose? You know, let's just think about that. What might it take? And what do we want to, what can we maybe tentatively look forward to? So.
Another peaches and pits, lemons and lemonade. Don't worry, everyone. I meant it when I said you would get the chat, so that will be captured and shared, and we'll all have new vocabulary to help our students understand that we care about what's happening to them, and we want to be part of an environment where that sharing is allowed. I love it.
I love the flipping, like the lemon and the lemonade. It really helps kids see that even though I'm struggling with something right now, there are positives, there are silver linings. And if I flip my script, that's a term I use a lot, flip my script, I might be able to move in a more positive direction that way.
So true, Keely. But I also think it's important that we remember that some of our students and some of our colleagues may be going through things that we don't understand, that we don't have any concept about. So when we begin to open up this sharing and create these connections, we do have to be very careful to help and not harm, to keep things low risk, and to be able also, though, to say, you know, would you hold tight and talk with me after class, because I want to pursue this further, and then be able to maybe refer to a counselor or school social worker or somebody that might be able to help guide that student or colleague, for that matter, through what they're going through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe being a listening ear is enough sometimes.
Yes. You know, less is more. My husband says it all the time. If we listen more and talk less, that helps us to connect as well.
Well, I'm going to put the squeeze on. Go ahead, Keely.
They also say that when students have experienced some trauma and they're sharing those things with you, that one of the best things that you can say is just, I'm sorry that you experienced that, or I'm sorry that that occurred. And you don't necessarily have to go into the counseling mode, but just to let them hear that you're sorry that that has occurred for them.
I started to say, Michelle, that I was not going to allow you to not talk, because I want to hear about believing intentionally. Number 7, key number 7.
You know, this is huge, and it's huge in so many different ways. So let me focus on believing in our students and the importance of that. But then I also want to talk a little bit, especially in this COVID era, of believing in ourselves. I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with, and Wendy and Keely, if you're familiar with John Hattie's work.
Oh, yeah.
But he has looked at a variety of factors that impact student achievement or student learning. And the leading influence on student learning is something called collective teacher efficacy. And I always change that a little bit. I hope John doesn't mind, but I always say collective educator efficacy, because I truly believe we're all educators, regardless of the role we serve within the educational community. And really what that means, collective teacher or educator efficacy, means it's our belief in our students' ability to achieve, and our belief in each other as a group, collectively, to make an impact on their learning. Like, we know that we can make a difference for them. If we believe in them and we believe in ourselves, they're going to achieve academically. And that believing, showing them that we believe, really goes back to some of this emotional and social connection. It's so important that we recognize their strengths. We not only tell them we believe in you, but why we believe in you. And you know, in my years in alternative education, I cannot tell you the number of times I would set an expectation, or my staff would say to a kid, you're going to accomplish this, and let's work on this. And they would say, nope, can't do it. I've tried, I've failed, I've been there, I've done that. You don't understand, T. I can't. You don't get it. I can't. And I would say to them, or my staff would say to them, you know what? You might not believe yet, but we believe in you. So grab onto our belief for now. You can use ours until you get there too. You know, and they do. They eventually do. Do I have 4 minutes to tell a quick story that connects this?
We all appreciate something that illustrates a concept. Go, Michelle.
So with one of my first group of students in this alternative education school, I really believed in service as a way in which students and adults find purpose to give back to others. And we created in our community a memorial mural. There was a certain amount of time in our community where about 25 young people from the ages of 11 to 25 had passed away in a very short period of time, just a few years. And many of these young people were friends or family members of my students. My students knew them. And so we created a memorial mural. This was back, gosh, I want to say 2009, and it served the community. People visited all the time. We had symbols on the mural that represented the various students that we wanted to remember, symbols so that other people could find peace and solace when they visited the mural, and maybe identify with a butterfly or a dirt bike or whatever was on the mural. Well, we had to move the mural. There was renovations where we had it placed in our community and it had to be moved. And I'm since retired, but this is a heart service project to me. And so I've been part of the new group of students who are moving it. And I was out at the site in kind of along one of the main streets in our community, and we're getting the mural back up. And come walking, from behind is a big Hispanic kid that says, "Hey, T." He's almost 30 years old. He was one of the students that contributed to this project when he was in high school. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Looks like you might need some help. We're family, right?" And this kid, who at the time struggled with reading, really struggled graduating from high school, he has found purpose. He is responsible now he got donated landscaping artifacts. In fact, after our time together today, I'm going to meet him and a number of other adult human beings who are going to gather because they came to believe they had something to give. In doing so, they achieved academically. The majority of them were able to graduate with a regular diploma, but they're also out in the world today doing good things. It makes a difference. And we've got to believe in ourselves. I just want to end on that. This unprecedented time of COVID, we've all been challenged with experiences that we've never been through before. That's what unprecedented means. We forget that. We've used the term so much, it's lost its meaning. Well, when we've never experienced something, then when we tackle it, sometimes we fail. Believing in ourselves says it's okay to fail. Let's give ourselves some grace and then figure out a new way to approach something, maybe using not only our colleagues, but our students in helping us problem solve so that we can all find success together.
Thank you for sharing that story. We needed it. This is a nice reminder, even as we think about our students today and the moment that we get to spend with them at this time in their life, they are still becoming, and what we plant now, we will reap later.
Investment. As are we, Wendy. I always told my kids, I'm trying every day to improve myself too. I'm trying too. So. And the educators that are participating in the chat, I'm sure will identify with this. People often would ask me, how do you know what you're doing works with your kids? And I would say, ask me in 5 years, ask me in 10 years, because you see it.
I don't want to leave the 7 keys without emphasizing their purposefulness. And I think you were intentional in talking to us about how these first 4 work together. What would you like for us to pin down as a takeaway from this message? Keely or Michelle, you've both explored.
Keely, you go ahead and tackle it first, because I think as you read, there were a couple things that resonated with you. What would just be one beyond the
I think for me, it's really, and I know we've all heard about this, it's the idea of active listening and really being intentional. I know I've already said that, but that whole idea of being an active listener, suspending judgment, really focusing on whoever is speaking to you, whoever you're having a conversation with. Try to minimize disruptions, whether it be technology disruptions or what other kind of interruptions. Just really work hard to be present in that moment as you're working through these four pieces. And then the other thing to do is really give people wait time. When you ask them a question, instead of just asking and then moving on to the next thing, not everybody processes at the same speed. And some of the students that we've worked with in the past, it really does take them a lot longer to process even the question before they can then process an answer and verbalize it. And so I think the wait time is really important when you're face to face, and then even more so when you're online or, in a virtual space, in a Zoom meeting or whatever it might be, that really you have to give that wait time. And a strategy I use is I'll tell my team all the time, I'm practicing my wait time. And then they know that, like, I'm expecting, that we're having this moment of connection, and then I'm waiting for you to give me some information, and then we're going to go back and forth with this. But the idea of giving people wait time is just important, because we all process things at a different speed. And so I think that's about really seeing each person as an individual, and providing that opportunity for everybody to be heard.
Yeah. And maybe giving various ways for people to be heard as well. You're talking about a virtual classroom. I love giving an opportunity for everyone to share in the chat, and then be able to share verbally as you feel comfortable. That's something that can be done. One thing that I would add to that, Wendy, maybe is, depending upon your personality, but educators in general tend to go a million miles an hour and do 15 different things at the same time. And, I tell a little story in the book about my husband saying to me at one point, I can't even remember exactly what I was focused on, but it was definitely more than one thing. And he could see the frantic part of my physical manifestations, I'm sure. And he said, babe, you got to close your tabs. And I said, what? And I was like defensive. And what are you telling me? And I didn't even know what he meant. What are you telling me? Close my tabs. I didn't even know what he meant. He said, what you remind me of is your computer. You have 25 tabs open. You bebop from one to the next without ever shutting anything down. And it was like an epiphany. I was like, you were right. I mean, he was right, but he really was right. You have to shut some things down. And we talk a lot about intentionality. Sometimes to be intentional, to be connected intentionally, you have to be still. And that's really difficult for educators to do. But to slow down and be still, even when you feel like you don't have time to do so, because you'll find that you get the time back. You slow down enough to build relationships as a classroom teacher. Some of those behavior issues you were dealing with before, or kids not showing up in a virtual setting, you're going to find that they're more connected in class, they're more engaged in class, and they might show up or turn on that camera if they haven't been, because they know that you care.
Michelle, I glommed onto that tabs being open, because we joke in our team that we can look at somebody's screen and there's 35 tabs open.
Yeah.
Right?
We all do it.
We also do that in our brains. I mean, it's crazy the number of things we're thinking about at one time. And that is one of the response questions in the course is, what tabs do you have open that you maybe need to close? And how does having too many tabs open impact you, your students, your family, your circle? And so it's, again, about intentionality, but it was definitely one of the things I grabbed onto from the text. I was like, I have too many tabs open, and I know that impacts other people. It just you're not able to be present when you have many things going on.
I'm wondering if that resonates with any of our attendees. I'd love to see
Yes.
If you're a tab open person, give us a thumbs up. And
Colleen
you
says
know how to
274 open right now. Oh my gosh. Opal says that her grandmother used to say, you have to have stopping sense.
Oh, nice.
I like that. I'd like to hear it in a grandma's voice too, because I'm sure there was wisdom that you could, the audible wisdom in it. But yes, know when to stop. I hear that analogy sometimes when we keep adding plays to the playbook, but we never take anything out. And there's like that feeling of always being asked to do more, but you never get to let go of anything. Maybe we can decide right here and now as a community of educators that we will positively recognize those moments and those gestures when colleagues are saying, I need to stop. And instead of whatever a regular muscle memory response may be, maybe we can push ourselves, say, good, I'm glad. And you know what, I will too. And allow that balance to be part of how we provide care for one another.
Yes, without a doubt. And sometimes the intentionality in that, some of us, I know my brain, needs to have those prompts. So if this is something that you're listening to and you're thinking, gosh, this sounds good, but the reality is my world doesn't work that way. Set yourself 3 timers a day, right? And when that timer goes off, take 1 intentional breath in through your nose, hold it, out through your mouth. That's a starting place. That's dipping your toe in to say, I'm going to be more intentional. I don't know which tab I'm going to close. I don't know if I'm going to be able to really practice all 7 keys to connection, but that's 1 intentional thing I'm going to start with for me so that I can be more connected with you.
We're going to have to schedule an intervention for Lorena, who was commenting that we can actually make folders of open tabs. No,
Oh my.
no.
It's a problem. No.
That's feeding the wrong beast. So funny. Michelle, you had a beautiful quote in your text, and I think Keely, maybe you may have selected this one. Let me bring it up on the screen and share, and let's talk about being conscientious about our smile. Let me offer this one to the group here. Look at this niceness. Let's hear it in your voice, Michelle.
If you are conscientious about your smile, it will start in your heart and shine through your eyes. Not only will you feel the difference, but so will the person on the receiving end of your smile. And I believe that with all of my heart. And like I said, I do believe it's grounded in brain science. Sean Aker has an amazing book called The Happiness Advantage. And he talks about this a lot. And, we can do, and don't get me wrong, there are many moments over this last year and a half that you may feel like you've got nothing to smile about. So I'm not asking you to smile in a way that is false, but all of us have something in our life that causes us to feel joy or love that we can reflect upon or, set our eyes on. I'm in my office and I've got pictures of my family around me. Set our eyes on something to feel that joy or think about something that causes that joy so that when we smile, it is authentic. And there's this activity that Sean Aker talks about in his book, and I've done it with hundreds of people at conferences, where you stand about 3 to 4, I'm going to say 6 or more in our COVID era feet apart. And one person, you both look down at your feet, and when the facilitator says go, the A row, their job is to show no affect on their face. That is the expectation. The other row, the B row, their job is to smile from their heart, to think about that thing that causes joy, smile from their heart so that it comes through their eyes. And without a doubt, when you say go, 98% of the people that were asked to show no affect can't help but smile. And those, we talk about it, process it afterwards. Those that don't smile, they really wanted to, but they just are so darn competitive, they weren't going to let it happen,
Yeah, it's really nice. We talked a little bit about verbally expressing when you're smiling and offering the kinds of interaction that reflect our feelings. Keely, is this making you think of any particular assignments in your course? I think that they're referred to as applications because you're always applying the knowledge in a Learner's Edge course, but are you thinking about any assignments or applications?
So because this is part of the 7 keys to connection, the smile authentically, it's embedded within that assignment. But I did have some other thoughts about it, just because I think it sets the tone for the day, right? For yourself, when you get up and there's your Post-it and you smile. And then when you even go into your classroom and you greet your kids at the door, they know if you're being authentic about your smile or your greeting with them. And so, for me, it's just really about kind of thinking about how can I smile a little bit more every day? Even if that's just thinking about, whether it be a flower that's popping up in the garden, or, my kids, or the fact that it's sunny out in Minnesota, which is a rarity. So I just try to think about things that bring me little pieces of joy. And then I try to share that with the other people that I'm interacting with, students or colleagues, so that they can just also figure out, oh, maybe I need to also connect and smile a little bit more. And instead of maybe saying, why aren't you smiling, or why are you always looking so down? Maybe just give them some ideas of ways to focus on positive things or be more grateful for things in their life.
It's easier to focus on positive emotions than it is to focus on negative emotions, but it is important to recognize our emotions regardless and know that they aren't good or bad. They're emotions, they just are. But recognizing joy, recognizing emotions associated with love, those are easier for some people to grab onto. So it is a good place to start, to then lead people to be able to recognize other emotions. Because when your shoulders are like this and your fists are like this, and your body's saying, I'm frustrated, or I'm angry, or I'm confused, or I'm scared, but you don't articulate it, that can lead you down a path where then it hurts relationships, or it helps you to be less productive. And so smiling, focusing on joy, those are ways to step into that whole idea of how do we recognize our emotions or our feelings or our moods, because they're all different, but they're all important.
Charlotte made a mention in the chat about body language seems to be a topic people only focus on in job interviews, but it certainly is a topic for us to be aware of, in how we present ourselves and how we encourage others to present themselves, and creating a space where SEL is more present on our minds. We allow ourselves to be more conscious about our behaviors and our interactions. Keely, I would like to invite you to talk a little bit more about your course, and then I watched the time sneak up on us.
Yeah. So as indicated before, I did use Michelle's book, Start with Heart, to create. It's the primary resource in the course. It's course number 5203. It is SEL starts with you. Social and emotional learning starts with you, because there has, over the past few years, been a major focus on SEL for students and for kids. But really, research is now saying, well, it's important that adults understand where they are with SEL and what their competencies are in relation to even Castle's 5 different competencies, right? And so Michelle's last chapter in her book is about SEL, adult SEL. And so I tried to incorporate in the course a number of opportunities for the practitioner to really look intrinsically and reflect on, where am I with this competency, social awareness, or relationship skills, and then actually apply content from Michelle's book and from some other resources that we've gathered for the course, apply that in their role. And so they can A, see where they are on the competency, and then B, work a little bit to improve it, even if it's just a tiny little jump or boost. And then the more that the adult knows about SEL and recognizes where they are themselves, the easier it will be for them to understand SEL as a way of being. And then also use those strategies and those skills, modeling them, explaining them, thinking out loud about them in front of the students, so that they start to really grasp the idea of SEL. So the course is a 3-credit graduate level continuing ed course. It's approximately 45 hours of work, lots of opportunities for reflection, many opportunities to apply learning to your role. And so we're just really excited about the course, especially with the focus on SEL, starting with you as the adult.
Michelle, what would you like to see happen as a result of this book and this course?
Oh, so much. It really comes down for me to educators understanding, and then being able to practice and model social emotional learning skills, which I would consider to be social emotional well-being, to nurture their own. Because we cannot integrate it into school culture, nor can we explicitly teach it to our students if we don't understand it, practice, and model it ourselves. And when I wrote this book and chose the title, and I do have to say in this slide, it is Start with the Heart. Start with the heart. It really, that's what it's about for me. It's looking at the inside. It's really trying to see people for who they are as human beings. We often talk about seeing the story behind the student. So I really want educators to have an opportunity to experience the value that can be found in focusing on social emotional learning. And I'm so grateful that Keely is the one that created it, because she values starting with the adult. And that really is, there's no other way to do it. If we just teach it without understanding it or practicing it ourselves, it will not be as authentic. So.
That's perfect. I'm going to invite us to close with an invitation to all our guests who have joined, all the attendees. If there is a takeaway that you are bringing with you from this conversation, if you are inspired in some way, please, will you offer it into the chat? There may be some things that we can continue to offer to one another. So we'll take one more moment with the chat open to allow a capture of a little bit more exchange of great ideas. There were specific examples, there were recommendations, there was support and appreciation for this topic that matters more than anything. Content area knowledge will come, but the space has to be right, and the individual needs to be ready and open for all of the learning that comes afterwards. Michelle Trujillo, thank you for being here. Keely Keller, thank you for being here. I'm grateful to both of you for leading a lovely discussion, and a reminder that we have a similar topic focused a little bit more for school administrators. So if this topic had meaning to you personally as a teacher and you'd like to see it at the next level in your program, please invite your school administrators or other school leaders or colleagues. Everyone is welcome to the conversation. Please do join us in June. We'll make sure that information to register for that webinar is available to you in part of our follow-up. As I promised, we'll have a recording of the webinar. Happy to share slides. We can share links and resources, and certainly this precious chat conversation with continued exchange of ideas. On that, I say thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you, Keely. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank all of you who joined us.